Lusion Action Plan Progress Report 2021-2023. July 20231. Executive Summary. Over the 3-year period 2021-23, the GPFI has successfully completed the work envisioned by the G20 2020 Financial Inclusion Action Plan (FIAP) across the 4 action areas identified under the 2 priorities of digital financial inclusion (DFI) and SME finance. In its work, the GPFI had consistently addressed and considered the cross-cutting issues of promoting the expansion of financial services among the hard-to-reach segments of the population, particularly targeting underserved and vulnerable groups, as well as the advancement of women's economic empowerment, and promoting financial consumer protection and financial literacy. Throughout the years, the commitment to work with standard-setting bodies, SSBs, to mainstream financial inclusion has proved to be immensely beneficial, as also the continuous attention to the important role that remittance flows play to drive financial inclusion and economic and social development. With regard to remittances, as mandated by G20 leaders, the GPFI continued to have a leading role in the facilitation of the flow of remittances, also by supporting country-led actions to reduce average remittance transfer costs to below 3% by 2030, in line with the GPFI commitment toward improving the efficiency of domestic and international transfers. At the end of each year covered by the G20-2020 FIAP, an update to leaders on the progress towards the G20 remittance target has been published, with the aim to review the evolution of remittances transfer costs and the progresses accomplished by G20 countries in the realization of their respective biennial national remittance plans. 2. Progress on the Financial Inclusion Action Plan. The G20 2020 FIAP identified 4 action areas under the 2 priorities of DFI and SME finance and envisaged expected deliverables to guide the work of the GPFI over the 3 years 2021-2023, see Annex 2. Accordingly, each G20 presidency produced deliverables that met the expectations. Under Italy G20 presidency, GPFI implemented G20 2020 FIAP identified 4 action areas under the 2 priorities of DFI and SME finance and envisaged expected deliverables to guide the work of the GPFI over the 3 years 2021-2023, see Annex 2. Accordingly, each G20 presidency produced deliverables that met the expectations. Under Italy G20 presidency, GPFI implementing and affiliated partners produced 6 reports, which present the policy responses and innovative approaches that have proved effective in mitigating the impact of the crisis and could guide policymakers in designing the recovery phase with a view to the future. Based on this work, the GPFI delivered a menu of policy options for digital financial literacy and financial consumer and small firms protection, enhancing digital financial inclusion beyond the COVID-19 crisis. The policy options contained in the menu are grouped into 3 pillars. Addressing the impact of the crisis and thinking ahead. Leveraging digitalization for a leap forward in financial inclusion. And addressing new and exacerbated risks and vulnerabilities. A technical annex complements the menu, providing concrete examples of good practices and effective policy approaches. All documents have been endorsed by G20 leaders in the Rome Summit. Under Indonesia G20 presidency, 4 reports were produced by the GPFI implementing and affiliated partners as references for countries in taking regulatory responses to harness digitalization to increase productivity, sustainable and inclusive economy of women, youth and small firms. Building on the 4 reports, the GPFI delivered the G20 Yogyakarta Financial Inclusion Framework, which was endorsed by G20 leaders in the Bali Summit. These outcomes were also complemented by the 2022 updated G20 OECD High-Level Principles on Financial Consumer Protection, and the 2022 updated G20 OECD High-Level Principles on SME Financing. Point 2. Under India G20 presidency, GPFI implementing and affiliated partners has been working on 6 deliverables, 2 of which have been finalized for the July G20 FMCBG's meeting. The update to leaders. On progress towards the G20 remittance target, and the regulatory toolkit for enhanced digital Financial inclusion of micro, small and medium enterprises (MSMEs). Additionally, the GPFI will continue to work on the remaining deliverables. The second update of National Remittance Plans. IV. The report on the impact of digital remittances in reducing their transfer costs. V. The report on SME best practices and innovative instruments to overcome common constraints in SME financing. And V. The report on assessing progress in the implementation of the G20 high-level principles on digital financial inclusion. Alongside the G20 2020 FIAP deliverables, the presidency identified the priority of leveraging digital public infrastructure (DPI) for financial inclusion and productivity gains. The GPFI recognized the potential of DPI for rapidly advancing financial inclusion and finalized the G20 policy recommendations for advancing financial inclusion and productivity gains through DPI. The policy recommendations have been prepared by the World Bank and have been informed by best practices from G20 and non-G20 countries and existing standards. The work has also benefited from panel discussions on various aspects of the DPI approach held alongside the GPFI plenaries. In addition, the GPFI also developed and adopted the new G20 2023 Financial Inclusion Action Plan (FIAP) that will guide GPFI activities for the years 2024-2026 and updated the GPFI term of reference toward 2023. Both will be submitted to G20 leaders at the Delhi summit. Further, Italy and India were appointed as the new long-term company chairs of the GPFI for the period 2024-26. During 2021-23, the GPFI also worked on promoting reduction in the cost of remittances against the commitments in the G20 Action Plan to facilitate remittance flows 2014 through country-led actions. In 2021, the biennial update of the NRPs was based on a new template prepared by the WB and IFAD with the aim to improve the quality and quantity of information for across-the-board comparisons and draw the rightest support measures for the short to longer run. Produced by the WB and IFAD, which aimed to shed light on the impact that the pandemic had on the remittances market amid an unprecedented switch to digital channels. In 2022, the G20 2020 FIAP did not foresee new deliverables for remittances, hence countries produced their updated National Remittances Plans (NRPs), and the GPFI, in collaboration with the World Bank and IFAD, prepared the 2022 update to leaders on progress towards the G20 remittance target by evaluating the steps taken in the direction indicated by their 2021 NRPs. In 2023, as indicated in the G20-2020 FIAP, the GPFI produced the annual update to the leaders on progress towards the G20 remittance target, the biennial update on the national remittance plans, and case studies and emerging best practices on the uptake of digital remittances have been collected. As foreseen in the G20